Hello, everybody. Welcome to the final segment of the Ashish and Ryan Sports and Political Podcast. Thank you for joining us, whoever watched us on YouTube or watched me on YouTube. And we thank you for your viewership. While it has not come in many numbers yet, we hope it does increase. But before I go into the political aspect of what of our show today, just want to break some new information out there that Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold are apparently both declaring for the draft. And I think both have the potential to be great quarterbacks if they drop. If they're not drafted by Cleveland, and I know that sounds like a cliche, but both these guys have incredible physical attributes. Rosen has incredible mental attributes as well, which led me to believe he's a better pro prospect and will eventually become a better player. But I think both guys, in the right situation, will be great quarterbacks for the team that they play on. And by the right situation, I mean anywhere but Cleveland. Yeah, that's what I mean. So, you guys already know what I feel about those guys, where I think they'll land, where they should land. Again, I might have said yesterday that Baker Mayfield would be drafted number 1. I don't think I did. But in case I did say that, Sam Darnold should be, probably will be. Baker Mayfield, wherever he gets drafted, unless everything goes right, I don't think he'll be great. I don't think he'll even be good at that in that case. And Josh Rosen has the most complete body of work in terms of mental and physical tools that can be applied to a NFL career with longevity as well. So I believe Josh Rosen is the best out of the entire quarterback class. I think Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, wildly overrated, won't be good. I think Sam Darnold is going to be a very good quarterback. Just hope he does not land in Cleveland. Rosen won't, I know that. Darnold will. Which will most likely, should I say, which I think will put a large speed bump in his career. I think because of his talent, if he goes somewhere else, he'll be able to survive that speed bump. But if he does go to Cleveland, I think it's not going to go well for him. Because it's essentially USC with much less skill position talent. And we saw what happened to USC this season. And we saw the hits that he took and how he looked. And when you take away the skill position talent, man, is he in trouble. However good he may be, he's in trouble if he goes to Cleveland. So, let me segue to this to begin like our official final section for day 3 of the podcast. There's been a lot of talk, right, about health care. About what's the proper plan, about how it should work, about what you need for it to work. Obamacare is not perfect. It has good things. It helps a lot of people. 24 million people have insurance now that didn't because of this because of the new mandate that people with pre-existing conditions. Sorry, I lost the name. because of pre-existing conditions, they're able to get insurance now partially free of cost. Yeah. And cheaper than it would beforehand. And then also that many young people are able to have insurance until they get a viable job. I'm able to keep my parents' insurance until I'm 26 mandate. There are also many unpopular things, such as the mandate where you have to chip in for other people's insurance. The individual mandate. The employer mandate is one of the more unpopular ones because it requires employers to fund health insurance. Small businesses are the ones that have to do this. The ones that are the most highly regulated. The ones that are scraping to have ends meet. The ones that have the employees with the least amount of wage growth. The ones that hire the most. And it's you know why they can't hire? You know why their wages are stagnant? Because of regulations like these. So we have to take that away first of all. And I think that's a good move by the party. Oh, listen. You can't take away insurance from 24 million people. You can't do that. The pre-existing condition regulation board has to stay. With an emphasis, I might add, on group insurance. Okay, group insurance is very important because the average cost is much less than if you're in the individual market. And it's been proven to do so, especially for those with pre-existing conditions, before this Obamacare law was ever passed. So we need to put an emphasis on group insurance markets and getting people with pre-existing conditions into these markets effectively. I think there is a temporary 6-month or 1-year insurance benefit called COBRA, instituted in 1996, that can be used to alleviate burdens during that transition period. I think that is one thing to emphasize. The individual mandate is very conservative, but I think it should be let up. I think it should be based on, do you want to chip in this much amount of money for other people's insurance, or can we get you cheaper? If we can make cheaper plans, we can reduce the payments of the individual mandate or the cost of them, which I think alleviate the burden a little bit. That's one thing. So there's a couple things that are necessary, right, to make this a competitive market where costs go down. Number one, you have to get rid of state lines. You have to. And what you have to do as a result of that is to have national healthcare regulation. That's the only plausible way to get rid of state lines. Okay? To get rid of state lines, we need national healthcare regulation. Because that's the only way for there to be comprehensiveness and clarity among what states, among what providers in every single state are allowed to provide, are supposed to provide to their patients. You can't have state by state regulators because this number one, alienates a majority of states from having major healthcare providers because of its regulatory climate, which is not fair to the people of those states. Number one. Or number two, companies use regulatory rules to their advantage, either by claiming, right? Either by claiming that they were confused with regulations from another state in order to shortchange the individual patient, which you don't want. What you do want, okay, is clarity. Across the country, these are the regulations. This is how it's going to get done. And you would like to have a discussion and have this drawn out from representatives of all 50 states, right, to pare this down. That's the only way you can have a free individual market without state lines. Let's be honest about that. You can't have regulations or regulatory climates that conflict each other and expect there to be an actual solution from that. It's not going to work. You need a pared down 50 state agreement onto here are the national regulations for healthcare. This is how healthcare is going to work in this country. You set your prices, cut your prices. And guess what? They will cut. Because no one's going to jack up prices when there are hundreds among thousands of competitors. Alright? Prices will go down, but you need a standard regulatory climate to make sure that this is clear, understandable, concise. You need that. That's very important. Number two, high-risk pools. If you're going to invest in it, invest a lot of money in it. Because guess what? To be honest with you, it ain't working. It ain't working. Okay? High-risk pools have been known not to work. Alright? High-risk pools, they only work if you invest tons of money in them. So, don't. Instead, okay, invest tons of money in these kind of, I forget what they're called, the Obamacare plan, but they're backup plans that they're essentially where you send money to the insurance providers so that they don't overcharge the people that have Obamacare that don't have a disability or don't have a major procedure, and they have to pay huge out-of-pocket costs to cover the people with pre-existing conditions. You need that type of safety net. And I know it sounds like it's catering to the rich people, the rich insurance companies. They can manage it. But let's be honest, even if they can, they're not. They're not doing that. That's why you see they're leaving the insurance markets. Prices are being jacked up on those that have normal abilities, that have this because they're scared of what might happen, and their prices are being jacked up, and now they might have to leave the system because of what the insurers are doing. And who can blame the insurers either? When you have to invest, alright? When you have to invest in making sure these people get treatments What are you supposed to do? Now, I understand that there's Medicare, that there's Medicaid, but that's not covering it. That's not covering it. And the fact that they also have to pay a fee along with the taxes that Obamacare has levied on medical equipment and things like that, I just don't understand it. I don't understand. Okay, so number one, here's what I would do. Obamacare taxes are not very large, okay? Even though it's a point of contention, they're not very large on the backs of most of the taxpayers in this country. Even the taxpayers that have the most money, it's like 0.6%. Not that big a deal. Just say 1.6%, I believe. Okay, so the way you bargain with Democrats is, if you're Republicans, right? We keep the taxes. We have a nationally regulated system. We'll have those two things, and we have some version of the mandates, not the employer ones, but the individual mandate. We have a version of it, and we have the pre-existing conditions. Kind of. We have that in place, with that regulation in place as well. What we're going to do instead, what we need from you, is to allow us to use COBRA as a way to make sure that costs for those with pre-existing conditions reduce, that you allow them to join group insurance, that the group insurance market is brought more into play, okay, that you invest in insurance fallback plans, alright, so that they can't charge those that don't have Obamacare, but don't have pre-existing conditions, they can't be charged more money strictly on the basis that you're not giving them fallback, you're not giving insurers fallback for the costs of people with pre-existing conditions and what they might require. Okay, you need a safety net for that. You need construction of the individual mandate. Right, and you need a simplified regulatory climate. You need a simplified regulatory climate, a national one, so that you can cut away state lines and reduce costs, as well as the money that you're giving to taxpayers. Don't make them Medicaid required. Don't make them Medicaid investments. Don't make them Medicare investments. Make them tax. What do they call them? The tax stuff. The tax. I forget what they're called. They have something to do with taxes. It's tax. It's some form of healthcare tax breaks in a way, because there are a lot of stories about how Medicaid and Medicare, right? Not many doctors are certified among those government agencies, and therefore they can't provide service to people with to people that have Obamacare. Now, to those that do have that service and that do require it, then you make it Medicare, Medicaid subsidies to help the person. But let's be real, right? We want a lightly regulated market. We want a lightly regulated market with more competition, right? And more freedom. That's what we want, and that's what you have to do. And I know there are a lot of things that Obamacare has that are kept in this bill, but that's the only way to compromise, right? That's the only way to compromise with the Democrats on this deal. And if you want to throw in, cut the taxes that could be on small businesses, not small businesses, but on middle income Obamacare recipients, sure, put that in. We're gonna cut taxes on those people. We're gonna increase competition and somewhat deregulate the market. Allow there to be competition, freedom. Costs are gonna go down. The Obamacare taxes are not gonna be on the backs of the middle income taxpayers, but we will give you certain things in return. We won't reduce the amount of subsidies, right? We won't get rid of pre-existing conditions. We'll put in place a plan in the event of group insurance markets that there's a way between transition time that you can gain temporary insurance, though it may be at a larger cost. But we got to include this fallback. We got to have a deregulated and more competitive market, and we got to eliminate the Obamacare taxes on the middle class taxpayers. Those have got to be your negotiating points, and I know this segment has gone a little bit long, so I'm going to cut this video here and start a new one in order to continue talking about this. We're almost done. I know we were going to talk about race, what I think about race and social issues in this country, but we'll get to that tomorrow. That's honestly a much bigger, broader, and wider scope. Very interesting, very touching. Bring in a lot of facts, a lot of statistics. Gonna be a very, very interesting show to listen to tomorrow. But we have a little bit more coming up after this about healthcare in the United States.